Hello and welcome to InfoWars Nightly News with me, your host, Paul Joseph Watson, on this March 29th edition of the show.
Tonight on the InfoWars Nightly News, the Obama birth certificate scandal accelerates. America's toughest sheriff, Joe Arpaio, and his chief investigator, Mike Zullo, talked to InfoWars about the media blackout surrounding Obama's fraudulent birth certificate and the growing list of missing records.
The majority of politicians don't even want to talk about it, Republicans and Democrats. It's like the plague to talk about this. I've never seen anything like this, and I've been a top federal law enforcement official for years and years. I'm not dropping this. I'm not dropping this. I'm going to keep moving forward.
An InfoWars exclusive report with the Cold Case Posse. Plus, why does the Department of Homeland Security need 450 million hollow point bullets? Are they attempting to buy up ammunition so Americans are unable to arm themselves? The American Dream investigates. Then, Urian Mason, writer, contributor, and Rockefeller deep researcher, joins us to talk about Agenda 21 and the Rockefellers' crimes against humanity. All that plus more on the InfoWars Nightly News. And now we take you to London, England, and Paul Joseph Watson.
Going straight to the news now, the shocking face of China's brutal one-child policy. This is the shocking face of China's brutal one-child policy, which many academics and pressure groups are now calling to be imposed in the West. And this image that we've got on the website shows a 9-month-old baby lying dead in a bucket, forcibly aborted by Chinese family planning authorities in the town of Moshan, which is in Shandong province. And because the babies of this unfortunate child had already had a baby, they were subject to the dictatorial one-child policy. The mother was abducted, injected with poison, and the abortion was induced. And after the baby was, quote, pulled out inhumanely like a piece of meat, which is the direct quote, it was still alive and actually began to cry before being carelessly slung into this bucket and left to die. And again, Ted Turner, Joe Biden fully understands China's one-child policy. White House Science Czar John P. Holdren, academics at the University of Melbourne, the establishment is all pushing this meme of the need to introduce a one-child policy for population control. And then the trendies and control freaks come out and get right behind it, because something I'd like to share with you actually on our Facebook page when we posted this story. This was one of the comments from one of the trendies who took great pleasure in seeing the image of this forcibly aborted child slung into a bucket. Quote, when people aren't smart enough to control their breeding, governments will take action. No sympathy here. So that was a comment left in response to this shocking image of this aborted child by somebody on our Facebook page. Well, first off, you should count yourself lucky that your parents didn't display the same lack of sympathy and abort you. And secondly, and this is the common theme amongst these trendies, this is the meme that they put out, they're advocating that the state have the power to abduct women off the street, inject them with poison, and forcibly rip out their babies while they're still alive. That's the new trendy liberalism. And they've got the nerve to post it in a public forum on Facebook like it's just a reasonable opinion. But it's, it's the mindset of a sick minority, but it's one shared by the elite. This is about academia and the establishment introducing the myth of overpopulation, which is what global warming, man-made climate change has been rebranded as deliberately by the UN, to introduce the same kind of arcane eugenic system that was practiced by the Nazis, who, of course, got all their ideas from the British. Starting with the Eugenics Society, which created Planned Parenthood, and now the Eugenics Society is called the Galton Institute. And that is one of the major groups out there pushing this myth of overpopulation to justify neo-eugenics, the apex of which is what happens in China, which is what they're pushing for in the West. And these are the same groups that were the inspiration for Adolf Hitler to kill disabled children in Nazi Germany, these are the same ones pushing for the one-child policy today. And this is always where it ends up. It's not just, oh, let's tax them if they have another child. It always ends up in forcible abortion. But I finished my article on this with a dash of hope, because I said, you know, even though this baby's lifespan was minute and virtually non-existent, at least its death was not in vain, because as a result of people seeing this image, apart from the trendies on Facebook who find pleasure in it and say they've got no sympathy with this forcibly aborted baby, people are going to see it and they're going to choose not to have abortions themselves as a result of these shocking images. So in the long run, this tragic story might actually end up saving more babies' lives. Next story, report, Iran attack postponed until spring 2013. Israel's plan to attack Iran has been postponed until spring 2013 following a war simulation that showed Iran could kill 200 Americans with a single missile attack, according to a report by senior Haaretz correspondent Amir Oren. And basically, many are of the opinion now that the Israelis, having done this deal with Obama where the US will supply the bunker busters and the refueling planes, has convinced Israel to back off the attack until after the November election. And whether that's, you know, heralds the second term of Obama, or we see Romney or somebody else get in, the policy is going to be exactly the same. So speculation that it's been delayed until next year. Of course, we know Iraq was initially scheduled to take place in 2002. It got delayed until 2003. But on the other hand, you've got 2 U.S. aircraft carriers already positioned in the Persian Gulf. You've got another one, the USS Enterprise, on its way. And then you've got, as we reported last week, 4 anti-mine ships also on their way to the Strait of Hormuz. So although the chatter on Iran has gone relatively quiet for the time being, the fact that that naval might is still in the region suggests that the whole situation is very much still a powder keg. Remember, the neocons have been begging Obama to go to war for years. So him attacking Iran before the election is not going to do his street cred with them much harm. In fact, they're, you know, prodding him to do it. And he could pose as this tough guy war leader before the election to obtain votes if he does that. So disagreement on when the attack will take place, but still the consensus is that it will take place within the next year. Why does the Department of Homeland Security need 450 million hollow point bullets? This is a story out of the American Dream. Somebody out there has decided that the Department of Homeland Security needs a whole lot of ammunition. Recently, it was announced that ATK was awarded a contract to provide up to 450 million hollow point bullets to the Department of Homeland Security over the next 5 years. And this article asks, you know, what are these 450 million rounds for? Doesn't it sound a little bit excessive? Well, there's no doubt, as we documented, that Homeland Security is arming itself to the teeth. You may recall the report we did last month, I believe it was, concerning how the DHS was hiring hundreds of armed security guards to protect federal buildings. We know that DHS was preparing for violence on behalf of the Occupy Wall Street movement, and indeed, they were the ones leading the crackdown, directing the New York police. They actually had their own FPS agents arresting photographers on the scene as well. So we've also got, as we reported back in January, DHS guards, again armed with semi-automatics, running this checkpoint at a Florida Social Security office, you know, checking people's IDs. So it's obvious what they're preparing for. I mean, the DOD characterizes protests as low-level terrorism. So DHS, like most other law enforcement bodies, agencies, is preparing for mass civil unrest. They know that gun sales in America are at an all-time high. You know, we had Black Friday purchases, record levels. Again, that's carried into this year. And it's all part of the effort to refocus the apparatus of the war on terror against the American people. That's why Homeland Security is arming itself to the teeth. Seismometer station rules out earthquakes as cause of Clintonville booms. Despite official claims to the contrary, early data from seismometer station in Wisconsin rules out earthquakes as an explanation for Tuesday night's mysterious booms in the town of Clintonville as residents continue to clamor for answers amidst increasing suspicion. So basically, they had the National Earthquake Information Center there in Colorado come out immediately after these booms on Tuesday night and said there was no earthquake activity whatsoever. Geophysicist Joe Bellini also came out and said that, quote, "We detected nothing from last night in terms of earthquakes." So these booms, which are described as like underground fireworks, first reported a couple of Sundays ago. Then, of course, we had the USGS come out and say, oh, we missed the earthquake. There was actually an earthquake that occurred on Tuesday, 1.5 on the Richter scale, and that's what's causing the booms. Well, residents were quick to point out that the booms were first reported the previous Sunday, so how could an earthquake that supposedly happened on Tuesday be responsible for them? And then again, a couple of nights ago, they had them again, more booms, louder than before, closer together, longer lasting, in an area which is unknown virtually for earthquakes. Wisconsin had a major earthquake for them back in 1947, rattled a few buildings, caused no injuries, and the region is not known for its earthquakes. To have two in a week is virtually impossible. Besides the fact that a town 80 miles away also reported hearing these booms. The USGS itself admits that a 1.5 Richter scale earthquake would only be felt by residents within a few blocks of its epicenter. So how on earth are people 80 miles away feeling it? Residents are suspicious. Doubts are being cast constantly. Now the USGS is calling on residents to report the booms directly to them. City officials who said, case closed, it was an earthquake, even though it had none of the characteristics of an earthquake, they're on the back foot once again. Explanations vary. Secret underground military tunneling, carbon sequestration, which is the process of injecting CO2 into the ground, all part of the climate change fund, the geoengineering capers. That's scientifically proven to cause earthquakes, so that could be an explanation. You've also got disposal of wastewater when it's not properly done from gas fracking operations. That's been proven to cause man-made earthquakes. And of course, the habitual bogeyman of HAARP is also being touted as a potential explanation for these booms. So we'll continue to track this. We're considering sending reporters directly to the scene if these booms continue. The last reports of them were on Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. So we'll continue to follow that story. Next news story on INFOWARS Nightly News. March 31st, Operation Global Blackout. Hackers intend to shut down the internet by disabling core DNS servers. This article out of SHTF Plan. The hacking group known as Anonymous intends to attack the core servers that control the routing of all internet traffic. And that is, of course, DNS name servers. Once a particular website is requested, a query is sent to a domain name server,